Hi everyone, welcome to Mangata Monday. Today we talk about payments and finance automation for Web3 with Oak Network, and our guest for today will be David Finkelstein. Hi David.
Hey Tommy, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm great. Oak continues to build, which makes my life a lot easier as the head of growth. So I'm excited to talk to you about, what we've been up to, what's going on right now, what's going on in the future. I feel like our conversations always get a little bit derailed and lofty, but that's part of the fun part, right? So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, you have been the first project that we have announced a partnership with. I think it was 2 months ago, and initially it was a few ideas that we discussed in a community call a few months ago, right?
Yeah. It's been a couple more months, maybe than a couple months. I'm losing track of time. I feel like, sometimes in crypto it feels like everything's moving at the speed of light, and sometimes it feels like you can't get enough done. But yeah, that's the genesis of the whole thing.
Right, and in the meantime, we have established contact more often. We already had a few calls. I think we had 4 or 5 personal calls, and started to discuss more and more details actually. But maybe let's roll back a little bit. So how's it going with Oak Network? Maybe for everyone who is hearing from you for the first time, what is Oak Network? What are you doing, and what is touring?
Yeah, for sure. So, Oak Network is building cross-chain trustless automation. That's kind of the tagline, right? Which I always dig into. But effectively, what Oak does and what Turing does, I'll hop into Turing in a second, is we are a parachain blockchain that allows you to schedule transactions in the future based off custom triggers. So right now we have live on our testnet and live on Turing, which is our Kusama parachain, the time trigger, which essentially means you can trigger any transaction in the future from your own wallet without custodying funds, without signing over your keys, to go off at a certain time. If you think about use cases for that, it's everything from subscription models, which are kind of new businesses and new business models that we're looking to enable for creators on Web3, over to much more concrete kind of DeFi applications like auto compounding, dollar cost averaging, portfolio rebalancing, things like that. So that's the very short version of what Oak does. Turing, as you mentioned, is the Kusama parachain, our canary network that we have, which is live. If you contributed to our crowd loan, I definitely recommend you go stake. The staking is live, and the APY is quite juicy right now, so everyone seems to be pretty happy with that. And we'll be launching some auto compounding for our own chain as well, both as a proof of concept to show what you can do with the functionality without having to use XCM cross-chain, which we're very excited about, but also obviously to relieve that pain point of going in, claiming your rewards, restaking them to make sure you're getting kind of maximum yield for your coins, or kind of putting more freedom in the hands of the users by allowing them to do that one-click auto compounding, which we're excited to get going as well.
Wow. Okay, David, that was super dense. I need to unpack that a little.
Yeah, that's what we're here for, right? I give you the super dense stuff, and then you latch on to what you think is interesting for the community. Tell me.
Yeah. So number one, I'm very glad that you're reminding me of the staking, because I saw it mentioned on Twitter once, but I actually forgot, and I need to stake my tour tokens. So I'm going to do that before I leave for my vacation. Okay. So Oak is building technology to automate stuff on the blockchain. Why do I need that? Is there already what are you competing against? So what is the existing solution? I'm thinking about yield aggregators that you're offering a better solution against, or how can we understand this?
Yeah. I was here with Batman last time from Yield Bay. We talked a lot about kind of existing solutions. The truth of the matter is, automation on chain is really, really, really hard to do, and that's why no one's really done it yet. All the solutions that you see out there right now either rely on some sort of custody solution, and we've unfortunately seen the very negative risks of that over the past couple months about leaving your coins on centralized services, but kind of Web 2.5 slightly less nefarious, but we still feel kind of unsecure solutions are bot networks. These solutions have a couple problems that Oak fixes. The first one is obviously I've been talking about a lot, is signing over your keys, signing over your funds. And we have this ethos at Oak that decentralization is useful, right? The decentralized nature of networks allows the user to then really truly be in control of their own funds. And right now, while you can hold your keys, right, you can hold your coins, if you don't really have a plan for that, for those funds, then we feel that you don't really own them. So there are quite a few competitors out there, particularly in the Ethereum space, which rely on smart contracts and bots to help you out. But unfortunately, you open up a lot of security vulnerabilities by trusting those bots, by trusting the bots to be incentivized properly, and trusting those smart contracts to not get hacked. So when we have it down at the blockchain level, like we built with Oak, things become a lot safer, but also open up a lot more opportunities to people kind of at both ends of the, I guess, asset spectrum, if you will. For the very large institutional clients, obviously you don't want to be signing over your keys to wallets that hold an incredible amount of funds, but the bot solutions always also tend to be very expensive, and that's because the nature of incentivizing bots. You need to make sure that these bot networks can make less money by stealing it than they can by executing a transaction at the time or trigger that you supposedly want it to go off. So because of that, at the very high end, it doesn't really work out well. And for the kind of the little guy who's in DeFi and wants to have access to automation that we're all used to in the Web 2 world, good solutions just don't really exist right now. And that's the gap that Oak is trying to fill. Obviously, in the middle, it also helps that we're cheaper and more secure. But the other set ends of the spectrum are completely unserviceable at this point from what we've seen.
Okay, so you're playing with the not your keys, not your coins theme here?
Yeah, always. I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, I guess I'll speak for myself personally a little bit more on this. It always feels like it's kind of hard to make progress, right? And we talked about this last time. I know we did because I talk about it every time. It's the idea of what's the actual, value proposition of DeFi, of blockchain, of crypto, and I think one of those big value propositions is actually being in control of your own assets instead of having to trust someone or pay someone to do it for you. So it opens up a whole world of possibilities once you're truly in control of your own funds, and not just in control of the sense of no one else can take it from you, but in control in the sense of you get to do whatever it is that you want to do with it.
Right. So maybe to put it into an example, at the moment, I'm holding KSM and I want to earn a better yield on it than staking. So what I did was, and we have Cheaper here who have been telling this story, and he's thinking that I'm insane for doing this. I swapped half of it for staked KSM, so Lido staked KSM, and then I'm providing this as liquidity on SolarBeam, and so I'm getting 44% APR there, and then I'm putting this into a yield aggregator to get it to, I don't know, 55% or something on Beefy Finance. And basically what I'm doing here is I'm giving away the assets to a smart contract. I can audit the smart contract, of course, but I'm giving it away to a smart contract that where an external entity has a little bit control over, because, for example, sometimes they're changing the strategies or whatever. And so it's really hard to determine what is my actual security on this and how much risk do I have. So, of course, it's only a small part of my position, but it's a little bit of a part of the position I'm willing to expose here. And what you are offering now is that instead of having an external entity controlling the smart contracts, this can all be done on-chain in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, for this specific example, it's interesting because I really approach this from like kind of a freedom perspective, right? Like maybe not everyone agrees with exactly the way you've chosen to allocate your funds, but I think it should be, your choice in terms of, what you want to do with your money. And I'm a little bit of a DJ myself. I think I can probably relate to your story maybe a little bit more than Cheaper, but that whole workflow you described, we can automate, the vast majority of that at a much more secure level and at a much cheaper level, right? So if you're going to use Beefy, then we'll be cheaper and more secure. With the auto staking, with the liquidity provisions, we're able to simplify those workflows for you. I think one thing that we're very excited about is the idea that, Tommy, obviously you're very experienced in crypto, and you kind of understand the risks, and you understand what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go. But we're looking forward to bringing products to market, which, might be one click for that exact workflow that you just described, and you don't have to keep doing it over and over and over. We can then automate your yields to go back into the exact same strategy that you just described, so you no longer have to sit there and claim in Beefy and claim in Lido and be using all these different protocols, shifting things back and forth. You could just use Oak as the hub to automate that for yourself. And there's even levels beyond that where you could then sell that strategy to other people, and become a money manager if you felt like it, right? These are all things that are theoretically possible with Oak. We're just in discussions with partners like Mangata to see what the users feel are the biggest pain points or the biggest annoyances in the DeFi world, and how we can help solve them.
Okay, yeah, I see. I just saw that we're also having Ursel from Oak Network on the call here, so I gave you permission to also join the stage if you want. Might be possible you have to rejoin the call, I'm not sure. Okay, David, so we picked a specific example of a typical automation task that needs to happen again and again. And we are seeing now that this task can be offloaded to a parachain. So for example, that is the Turing parachain on Kusama. Now, maybe to put this into a little bit bigger perspective. So in simple terms, this means there can be some things happening, like every day, you want something to happen, and now Turing steps in and triggers the same activity every day. Is it that I'm ordering the activity to happen? Do you have to build a little bit of a transaction for every new thing that I want to do, or what do you have on the roadmap here as features coming? How can users expect to use Turing in the coming weeks and months? Give me a little bit of insight here.
Yeah, for sure. We'll push up against alpha, right? I think, I've talked about this a lot on other AMAs, and I think our messaging has been pretty clear, but because we're sort of an infrastructure play, we really want this to be user-friendly at the end of the day. Ursula talks a lot about making sure that we're actually, solving problems for users that they actually want to use. And if we're not doing that, we're just building a bunch of nonsense that, sits there and no one cares about. So, as terms of how you're going to interact with Oak, while I'd love to see a little powered by Oak button, maybe on Mangata's UI at some point, really the goal here is to enable automation features for everyone's favorite platforms, protocols, whatever it may be, and offload that block space and that compute over to the Turing network in the next couple of months. So how you would theoretically interact with it is, let's say there's a bootstrapping program on Mangata X. We will work and develop palettes, with your team, such that the user at the end it's going to feel all very seamless, right? Everything looks the same. Any other liquidity bootstrapping that you might have done on Mangata, it will look very similar, if not exactly the same, up until the point where you get to ask if you'd like to auto compound, which case you check a box or you flip a switch and say yes, please do that for me. You'll come schedule those transactions on the Turing network all in the back end. And all you have to do is kind of watch your rewards go up a little bit faster than they would otherwise. So it's a very complicated idea. And I know when I speak, it gets very dense frequently. But at the end of the day, this really is all about a very smooth user experience. And, let us handle the difficult stuff to make it very simple for people to be in charge of their funds, earn more money, whatever the particular problem is that they're running into that they'd like to solve using some automation.
Right. Yeah. I definitely can see that button on Mangata X appearing where you have a liquidity mining pool, and then it says auto compound. Now, how do you say yield farm? What would be the button?
Yeah. I think auto compound is usually the language that we use, but it could get obviously more interesting than that as well in terms of where you'd like to put your rewards. I think particularly as Mangata grows, it gets very interesting for us because the more connections that you guys make, the more tokens that are listed, even the bring your own gas feature makes things so much easier for the user. And once things are easier for the user, it's much more easy for them to comprehend how, whether it be auto compounding or, stable coin averaging, right? If you bring your AUSD over to Mangata and you say, the market looks a little bit shaky, I just want to make sure I'm buying, 50% MGX, 50% Turing, once a day for the next month for this amount of money, depending on how much money you have.
Yeah.
That all becomes possible once these channels get opened up with projects like yourself and with Turing.
Yeah, I can also see the combination here when you have gasless swaps, which basically makes swapping only be the cost of the exchange commission of 0.3%, and you would have that just like you mentioned every day. So you have a dollar cost averaging strategy, and you just set the budget and you hit the button once on the dashboard, and then it just does the task for you every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, one of the reasons why I was so excited about Mangata in the beginning. Obviously, personally, because I hate dealing with gas costs, being a reformed Ethereum maximalist. But more importantly, for the automation use case, it's one less variable that we have to worry about in terms of making sure that we're putting out a product that actually works for users, and you won't accidentally end up spending all your money on gas, or any of the other horror stories that anyone's been in DeFi, for more than 6 months has accidentally spent too much on gas somewhere, right? So you learn these things and you learn what the problems are. And Mangata's fixing a big one with the gasless swaps. We get to fix another one, but the really cool, powerful stuff comes when you put those together, and it's new features and new functions that literally you couldn't do anywhere else. It's not physically or possible within the code to do some of the things that Mangata and Oak are trying to do. So that's the super exciting stuff that I'm looking forward to. Shipping actually, which is kind of crazy, because when we first started talking, it was all just pie in the sky ideas, and now we're getting, very close. We're on roadmaps to actually deliver some serious value to the user base.
All right. So this seems to be a very developer-centric or even B2B perspective that Turing has to take, because it needs integrators and developers who start building on Turing and combine the power of Turing or Oak with the power of other networks. So what have you been doing in terms of developer relationships? And maybe I've been not following it enough, but what kind of other partnerships have you announced so far on this front?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to get involved with the developer community as much as possible. But you're right, we do have more of a B2B focus, and that's one of the nice things about our business model, is that we kind of get to leverage other communities like Mangata's who are very strong to help build things, and obviously the Mangata team as well, that will utilize Oak, even though you may not be interacting with Oak directly, in terms of building some sort of no code workflow for yourself, or a bot for yourself that does something directly on our chain. But beyond that, we also we just wrapped up our first DApp contest. We had $50,000 in stablecoin rewards. So there's a couple projects you can go check out right now, which are very cool. We have a governance dashboard. We have a staking dashboard from Web3 Go. So for anyone who's listening and also, like Tommy, realize they need to stake their tokens, definitely recommend Web3 Go's dashboard, which you can find in our Telegram and our Discord. Makes it very simple to choose which of the community collators you want to support or feel safe with. I think other things we've been doing, we just finished a security audit, which we're very excited about. We are, we have an ambassador program that's being refined and opened up. It's maybe not similar to other ones in terms of kind of anyone can get in, but we've been working hard to make sure that the quality remains high, and we roll out at a pace that makes sense for us, that's manageable, and everyone's kind of on board together with this kind of vision that Oak has. But yeah, I think those are the main things that are coming up. Obviously, there's quite a few wallets with Subwallet and Nova both working with us very closely. So you should see some announcements there in the future in terms of auto compounding and other features that you can use beyond the kind of phase 0, I would say, which is things that other parachains have already accomplished. True phase 1 for me and the team really starts when you're able to use Oak and Turing functionality, which hasn't been seen before. So very excited for all that stuff to come out in the next month or so.
All right. Yeah. Let me put something in between before I ask with to continue with my formal questions. But I would like to get your feeling on this. So, what I've been observing, we had a few community calls with builders and founders in recent weeks, which I was really glad about. And it seems to me that last year everyone was very excited about parachains, and then all of the delivery didn't happen as fast as people originally hoped. And then the bear market set in, and I see that there is a lot less noise and stuff happening on Twitter right now. But I see from all the discussions I'm having, I'm seeing all the progress that is actually happening on chains, and it just takes some time. But my feeling is that so much stuff is currently happening where so many projects are just one step before they are delivering the next big thing. And it seems to me that a lot of this will start rolling in the coming weeks and months. I mean, I'm always very optimistic, so it always happens a little bit later than I'm hoping for. But it seems to me there's so much going on. But I guess you're talking with different people than I do. So what's your impression here? When will things start to keep rolling more, and you will see all of those XCM interactions, for example? XCM is a topic that gets mentioned so often. So what's your impression here?
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good question. I like thinking about these things a lot as well. I think probably you'll see some bifurcation, right? There's no one, there's no ecosystem where everyone delivers everything ahead of time, right? It just doesn't work that way, and everyone's working on different levels of complexity. But I think you're right. I think the channels have really started to open up. As far as the HRMP goes, my sense is that XCM development continues in a very steady fashion, and we were very strategic here at Oak about making sure that we were building something that could actually be used. And I think we're kicking off definitely a season of delivering in some of these things, whether it be functionality or whether it be token launches. You do get that sense that it's a good time for builders, if not for investors. But I've been following crypto since 2017, maybe not the longest of anyone on the call, but for a decent amount of time. And these cycles are, at this point, kind of fairly normal, for better or for worse, right? And I don't want. I try not to get overly optimistic either. It's a running joke on the team that the growth guys are always saying everything's going incredibly well, and thankfully we have engineers and my researchers just to remind us that nothing's perfect in this world and things go wrong. But broadly speaking, I remain bullish on the ecosystem, on all of our close partner projects. No one's stopped building, right? And not having to focus on price as much, the Twitter noise that you're talking about. And, to be blunt, probably some pruning of the community that I won't say they're here for the wrong reasons, but let's say their reason has been significantly muddled or declined over the past 8 months. You're left with people who really believe in the tech, builders who understand the flexibility and the power of Substrate. And it shows in a lot of the numbers. It shows in the developer community. It shows in the number of XCM channels or HRMP channels that are opening up, and it shows, like you said, in the people that are actually delivering new features and launching, like Mangata. You know what I mean? Like, you guys launched, like it actually happened, right? And it happened pretty quick. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch who kind of sprints ahead and who's been hiding behind walls of capital or whatever it may be. Not speaking about any projects in particular, I'm pretty bullish on the ecosystem as a whole. But that shakeout is always kind of what happens. And you listen to stories about like even Axie Infinity, right? Like they attribute most of their success to building through the crypto winter. So having the runway is important. Having the people on board who believe in the project is important. And I think those things will really come to shine over the next year or two.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can also see it maybe it's because I'm getting more involved with this, but in the last 2 weeks, I have started to learn how to read XCM calls, actually, because I needed to understand what we're currently looking at and building. But maybe let's start it like this. David, how how much of a Polkadot.js user are you? How much are you looking at Subscan? Is it something you leave for the team, or how much have you been digging into this?
Yeah, I think, I mean, for better or for worse, my time, I think I used to use it quite a bit. But these days it's kind of ad hoc projects. We just launched our governance module, with which was a huge launch, and we're very excited about it. So you talked about, developer incentives. Our grant proposal is up. If anyone has anything that they'd like to build that they think that would be helpful, definitely stop by the Discord, chat with us about it. We've got that up and running. So I was poking around in Polkadot.js for those type of extensions, although I don't think I'm as technical as you, Tom. Yeah, I prefer my Polka assembly when I can get it. So yeah, I think I should probably be poking around more, but I'm just not sure there's time for it all in the day. But I think another thing that has been interesting for us from the partnership side, a lot of what we look at is where we can drive volume and which partners are gaining traction, and no one's been shy about their traction numbers or anything along those lines. Everyone's quite happy with the growth. So while the price movement's unfortunate, at least the inside sort of alpha, I suppose, that I can give from all the projects that we talk to, is that the user base continues to grow. User base continues to grow. Maybe the dollar amount's lower, but the number of wallets is increasing. The number of projects is increasing. I don't know. Do you feel the same way, Tommy? Am I on board with you? I kind of answered the question and didn't get your take.
Yes. I've recently took a number at different parachains on Subscan on what their actual daily active users are. So you definitely see that it's bigger in Polkadot than in Kusama. And I think at the moment that the total potential for a user base, or the most active user base you ever saw on Polkadot, was maybe 70,000 users. And on Kusama, it was sort of 15,000 users. And for individual parachains, it was sort of maybe 3,000 at max, or maybe for some parachain launches, it was 10,000 or a little bit more. So I think there is definitely room for growth. But what I also see is that the users that are remaining now, I think I can just draw this comparison, and I keep drawing it. When I was getting convinced that Ethereum is a big thing in 2017, I also saw that there is not so much happening. And personally, for me, I was thinking about writing smart contracts, but I couldn't come up with anything creative. So initially, you're lacking a lot of creativity. And now I see already so much creativity in Polkadot, but I think the adoption is similar to what Ethereum was at in 2017. So my assumption is that we are so early, similar to where Ethereum was 5 years ago, that everyone who is spending time in the system right now learns a little bit about everything, and it will help them immensely in the years to come when we're seeing the adoption grow and grow.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think I was 2017 for Ethereum as well, and I remember, even people who understood crypto, and so much of it was focused back then on like, what is a blockchain? What is the point of blockchain, right? And so many conversations around Bitcoin, and I was already excited about, but if you could program it, right? If you could do smart contracts, there's all this incredible functionality that you could unlock. And it was always like, it was people asking me, well, where is it? How come I can't do any of this now? I'm like, well, when you can do it, it's too late, right? From an investment perspective, or if you're not looking to the future of what's possible, then you're kind of missing the point for being in an ecosystem that's new and getting ready to truly thrive. And I think the parallel is really strong there, because things like Mangata and Oak, which are just not possible on Ethereum, whether it be due to very simple constraints like gas fees are insanely high, or whether it be due to them not including alarm clock functionality to do something like what Oak is doing. You kind of have to believe in the vision a little bit. You have to believe in the story to see where the puck is headed, and I think that timeline lines up very nicely with my feeling as well.
Yeah, it's so true. And also what I see every week in the calls with all of the builders of the ecosystem is that when you talk about Web3, it's about integrating all of these different services and building a landscape of different services, and having this opportunity when I first read about Oak Network and that you're building workflows on chain, I knew immediately that this is such a huge and important building block in the whole ecosystem, because having a trigger on chain, you cannot do this in Ethereum. And this just shows how big the difference is. And you can get so many ideas by just taking 2 or 3 different blockchains that are established already or that are upcoming in Kusama and think about how would they play together, and you can just come up with ideas. And this is just us sitting here right now coming up with so many ideas more than we can implement. And I think the more people that are joining, just because maybe developers, because they hear there is a nice pay for Rust development or WASM development or even EVM development. And then you get more people that start playing around with NFTs, for example, and from there are onboarding or crossing over. I think we have no idea of where we are actually going with this and how much will be there in 5 years or so.
Yeah. I mean, it's impossible to tell exactly, but there's forgive my pun, but there's canaries in the coal mine, right? Like, you can watch who's delivering, you can watch who's got good ideas, who's associating themselves with other strong projects, and who's focused on what I think are the important things, which is delivering a different, hopefully better value proposition than the systems that came before it, right? And that ranges everything from AUSD and chains like Amplitude, which are bringing fiat on ramps, to Mangata, to even GM or Die, right? Like there's these types of interesting things going on. It's always hard to tell what's going to take off and what's going to gain adoption, because there's just so many ephemeral inputs that go into the success of a project. But diversify, not financial advice, and keep building has served me well and served Oak well so far.
Yeah. David, I'm having a question here on Discord. When is Tour going to be listed on Mangata?
Is that a question for you or a question for me?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, we're building. Maybe I can offer insight from my side. So we're building hard. Once we started opening channels on Rococo, we discovered a few more minor issues that we have to solve. And I got a report today that we have solved them and have already deployed our solution to Rococo, actually. So this is something we've been playing around with or not playing, but actually working with. And so we have solved all of the transfer issues. So in Rococo, we are ready to transfer tokens. And I think technically we also have the readiness to use Tor as a token to pay any fees that are necessary on Mangata. What about you? How was your rollout so far? What milestones did you accomplish? And I know that you had announced the roadmap, I think, in February, so with the upcoming 4 months. So what were the steps that you have completed so far?
Yeah, Turing is basically done. The governance module was the last one. We kept Sudo for a little bit longer just to speed up the development process, and we took some feedback from the community. No one seems to be too particularly concerned. We're still obviously dedicated to getting rid of it and being fully decentralized, but in the short term, making sure that we're pushing updates quick enough seemed to be the more prudent path, especially when we're doing things like yourself on Rococo, testing and finding bugs and small things of that nature. I think for us, being more of a B2B type model, where we are not trying to gather users directly to Turing or to Oak as much as we are trying to make sure that the users of our partner projects have a good experience. We spend a lot of time managing the community and expectations, obviously, but also managing those relationships with folks like Mangata to make sure that we are delivering a product that makes sense and that works. And that requires quite a bit of work because no one's ever done this before. But learning about things like what it means to bring your own gas and how that affects the product, what type of exchange fees to expect. Obviously, with you guys, it's very straightforward. With other partners, it could be more difficult, even down to kind of estimating what we think most people will be contributing to liquidity bootstrapping protocol, and how often it makes sense to auto compound. Obviously, in the future, we want this to be all very customizable, but in the short term, we want to make sure we have a product that works for, if not literally everybody, then almost everybody, so that everyone can kind of gain benefits from the automation features as we really narrow in on what products make the most sense. So we've been doing quite a bit of research into bridging, making sure that we have the ability to go out to those other ecosystems, and whether it be meeting them there or dragging more people into Polkadot, where, you know, obviously we believe the functionality and the value proposition is really strong. That's a seamless process. And then even into the next phase, now that the time triggers launched, we're doing quite a bit of research into price triggers so that we can unlock things like iceberg orders and limit orders, which, you know, obviously you won't be doing that every day because it's not a time trigger, or maybe you will. If you're an active trader, feel free to set a limit order every day. There's no problems with that. But I think, you know, letting people sleep at night with some sort of, you know, the equivalent of insurance for auto sales, or to be able to just manage your portfolio a little bit more effectively without having to lean on centralized services. That's been a lot of the current research and work that the team's been working on.
Right. Yeah, from our side, what I also got reported from the team is that technically we are having the first version of our generalized bootstrap palette on Rococo. I think they have found at least one issue that they are fixing on Rococo, and the front-end team is pushing hard to get that part finished. So from our side, there's still a little bit of work going into it, but it shouldn't be too far out until we can claim that we're ready. And that would be very awesome to have Tor. So maybe to recap on our roadmap, we have ASD, which we need to list. And then the second thing, so the two channels we have on Rococo, the two channels we have is with Karura and with Turing. And that's going to be the order we are also doing on Kusama. David, can you tell me, because you mentioned the governance module, what does it mean for you, governance module, and how is your approach to governance, on-chain, off-chain governance?
Yeah. So this is all the on-chain governance. We take it very seriously. We, you know, obviously we used quite a bit from what we saw worked, but we sped up the process a little bit from Kusama to make sure that we can push updates out effectively. I think in the short term, you know, for the community, the biggest boon there is going to be able to submit grant proposals or other things of that nature. If you'd like to, you know, help support Oak or Turing in some way, we really want to get people involved with that. So whether it be, you know, you're a developer and you're building something, or if you have a community that you run, even into like, you know, ambassadors and influencers, we really want to make this usable for people. So that's part of that governance dashboard that we've launched with our partners from the DApp staking contest. Sorry, not the DApp staking contest, from the DApp contest. And I think from a more kind of philosophical angle, the whole team is a big believer, like, in decentralization, like I've always said, right? This isn't, well, you know, we've retained obviously a council, and we have quite a bit of influence over that. We are very much looking to the community for guidance in some ways. Not that we'll just do whatever anyone says that has some crazy idea. You know, we think we're quite good at what we do, and someone has to steer the ship. But we're, especially in Web3, kind of nothing without your community, right? And I think Bengata really gets that as well. So to allow people to, you know, vote on upgrades, to allow people to vote on the direction of the project, and to allow people to vote, you know, kind of very concretely what happens with this large treasury that we have available for support of the ecosystem. These are all things that we're really excited to keep pushing out there and making available to people who kind of get the vision of the network, and have a say in how this whole thing develops. And, you know, back to your other point, Tommy, about how it's really hard to tell what's going to happen in the next 5 years. It absolutely is. But one of the very cool things about Web3 and decentralized services is you no longer have to just sit back and watch and wait and see what happens. These governance proposals and modules have the ability for anyone who owns a token to get involved and have their voice heard in a way that is very difficult, kind of, in my opinion anyways, almost anywhere else outside of the blockchain space. So definitely encourage people to do that. Both from I'm the head of growth and want to know what people are up to perspective, but also from a more humanistic, like, being in control of your own future and what happens with the protocols that you believe in. I advise people to get involved, and that's not financial advice either.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point, because we have been talking about this too. You have this strong force towards more decentralization, and at the same time, you need people who basically condense and put together all of the ideas that the community and the user base as a whole has, to put them into specific proposals on how to steer the whole system. And so you need to develop that culture where different people participate in the discussion and bring in their ideas. And I had this discussion with Bitcoiners today, and I have them on my personal account, so not my sort of my private old account on Twitter. And one of the most valid critiques from Bitcoiners towards every other blockchain-based system or protocol is that it can be more centralized in nature. And for any protocol in Web3, and I think in Polkadot launching, this means that they have a bigger allocation for the team, for the early supporters, because people are just looking out for opportunities to support the project early. But those people are then the co-owners sort of the project, and they can steer the direction of the product. And they can only make their investment valuable by steering a product in a positive direction. So it's basically the job of the founding team to find the right people that take over the role as the leaders of the project, and to, when you have this progressive decentralization in mind, to get more and more people involved. And for example, when I'm looking at this call right now and at the people that are in the call today, I know that I have had personal conversations with a few that got aware of Mangata early, and they want Mangata to be successful, and so they invested a little bit, either in the crowd loan or when the token was starting to trade. And so I think they are the people that are most interested to make it successful and are also invested in other projects. So they see the crossovers, they see how possible opportunities pop up. And I think this will be the transition to Web3, is when you have this shared ownership of a lot of protocols that are starting to engage with each other also on that basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a little bit of where, the current financial system has kind of gone off the rails. And it's not like, governance in Web3 doesn't have its own risks. I don't know if anyone else was following, the Rome DAO saga, but there are weird things that happen when you build new systems and create strange incentives for projects and token holders, whatever it may be. Thankfully, we have Kusama, where we can expect chaos, right? And thankfully, Gavin is clearly hyper-focused with the new governance, kind of rollout that he's been planning and spoke about at Decoded, which I'll be blunt, I need to dig into more as well. But, the idea here isn't that we've got the answers for everything or that this new system is perfect, but it's cool. It aligns a lot of incentives that creates these very interesting communities, which I know you guys were talking about last week. And I think most importantly, again, it really drives home that ethos that we have at Oak, which is, putting people in charge of their own futures. And that's a lot of what I think Web3 is about. And I think, having projects like Mangata that have kind of a similar ethos is really important to the space.
Yeah, it is great that Polkadot is accumulating so many people with a similar mindset, and we're all building here together. I think this is one of the most enjoyable things overall here.
Yeah. I think I talked about it a lot. I really wasn't expecting it, especially coming from Ethereum, but it just shows how, if you're very intentional about the way you build something, it does drastically affect the community members that sign up, right? Whether it be the way I built Oak or you build Mangata, or even just having, my favorite example is having the cross-chain functionality built in, right, to the relay chain, so that it encourages projects to work together as opposed to copy, paste, go somewhere else and steal market share, right? We have very drastically shifted the incentives here at Polkadot and hopefully throughout Web3 to allow people to communicate more effectively and to work together on projects as opposed to being acrimonious or combative, as such is the nature of a lot of scarce resources, which is unfortunately how the world operates right now.
Yeah, it's this funny sweet spot where actually Substrate reduces the barrier of entry for layer 1 chains, but it is still such a high barrier that all the layer 1 chains you see in the ecosystem, or most of the layer 1 chains you see in the ecosystem are people made up of people that are very dedicated that are in it for the tech. They can't just copy paste a project like you said and expect it to be successful, but they have to come up with a genuine new or original idea or implement a traditional crypto concept in a new Web3 way or Substrate way. And so the parachains you see actually offer something genuine, new, novel. And so you see all of those teams that are assembling and actually starting to share knowledge, and it creates this new layer of exchange of knowledge and ideas. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and obviously for an infrastructure project, that's super key to us. But even beyond that, just the fact that you guys are bringing AUSD and don't need to develop your own algorithmic stablecoin or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. It reduces a lot of the risks for the users as well. You get to see your favorite projects working together as opposed to having to sit there and fight on Twitter about who stole whose idea, right? There's better ways to spend your time, I think, and Polkadot really encourages that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, JC is posting one question. What can we expect from Oak in the near future?
Yeah, for sure. So there's quite a bit planned. Obviously, the listing of the coin, it seems to be on top of everyone's mind. As we talked a little bit about that, I definitely not going to give out any sort of strict timelines with my CTO listening in. But I guess I'll definitely say that we've been very happy with Mangata's progress and really excited to work with them. So hopefully you'll see that soon. We've talked a lot in the past about a Q4 crowd loan for Oak, meaning the Polkadot network. We're still on track for that. So I think that's a big enough window where I probably can't get into too much trouble for saying that's still in the works. Like I said, price triggers are definitely something that we're looking into. So enabling limit orders and stop losses on any decks that we get to connect to is going to be in the future for sure. And I think those are the main things. We're trying to drive as much traffic and use cases as possible. And to tie it back to what we've been talking about for the past couple of minutes, for better or for worse, there's quite a bit to do kind of at the very initial stages about bringing that functionality, across Polkadot. So, Mangata is obviously one of our very close partners, but I don't think it'll be too combative to say that, we do plan to be everywhere. And I think watching Oak's functionality kind of expand across the ecosystem is going to be the biggest thing to look forward to in the next coming months.
Yeah. So I saw that Ursula also just shared the roadmap in the text channel. David.
Yes.
We're coming to a close here, but maybe I want to share with the community one last thing. So we recently had a call and we talked about XCM and making XCM or building features together based on XCM. And what I want to share with the community is this special feeling that developed, I think, for many people on that call, because so usually when you have a call between teams, it's somewhere between 2 and 4 people. So a person from each side, maybe 2 people, sometimes you have 3 people. But on this call, I think there were 7 or so people. And we were talking about building a feature based on XCM together. And I think at some point we realized this is we're discussing something that hasn't been done before. So, we're not sure we're checking this, but it seems that vision of Polkadot is to have cross-chain interaction going on. And the first use case obviously is to transfer tokens. But other than that, we are not seeing any XCM use case yet. And it seems that this is about to change. And I think at some point during that call, that realization set in that we're actually doing something that hasn't been done before. Am I right here? Am I wrong here? Did we get any other intel?
This feels to me like the same way I have been talking for the last 3 or 4 months about people. They ask me like, what makes Oak different, right? And it's like, well, we are truly trustless on-chain, cross-chain automation. Everything else that I've ever seen for all the automation involves either bots or signing over your keys, locking up your funds, centralized servers, something of that nature. Something that it's not actually on-chain, it's not actually trustless, right? And I haven't been proven wrong on there yet. No one has managed to do what we do. And negate that statement yet. Someday, probably. Nothing lasts forever. But this feels like the very first time where I'm getting that feeling again, which is I'm very hesitant to say that there's definitely no one out there doing anything like what we're doing. But for all my research and my team's research, what Mangata and Oak or Mangata X and Turing are discussing about launching, about true cross-chain functionality, messaging, user interaction that is cross-chain but behind the scenes without switching a bunch of wallets and waiting for things to teleport due to centralized security, which unfortunately we've seen the bridging solutions right now. I don't think anyone thinks that they're the last version of what we're going to see. No one's proven me wrong yet whenever I bring it up. I think we're doing something for the first time ever, and it gets me really excited.
Yeah, it's definitely the same feeling. I've been reaching out to Parity, and it seems we could be the first to do this. So let's have the fingers crossed. If others do the first non-transfer use case, then it's also fine for me because we're still one of the first. But it would be nice to claim this one. So I'm having my fingers crossed. Being a bit bold here to state it publicly, but I'm just full of hope here.
Yeah, no, well, that's our job. And then Ursul's on the call, and I'm sure Gleb will say something as well about how, we actually have to develop it, right? But you and I, we get to sit here and just stay optimistic, and that's part of the fun part about what we do, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we're coming to the full hour, so I guess it's the perfect time to wrap this one up. David, it was a pleasure having you today. And discussing all of those things, and also see the progress that you are doing, the progress that we're doing together, and discuss not only technology but also philosophy of Web3.
Yeah, always a ton of fun to come talk to you, Tommy. Enjoy the vacation, and maybe once you get back, we'll get you on our server and we'll talk hopefully about product launch at that point.
Yes, definitely, and with that. Let me see. Next Mangata Monday, it's going to take some time. We're taking a summer break here, it seems. So there will be no Mangata Monday next week. There might be a Mangata Monday the week after that. We're still figuring that out. Definitely when I'm back in 3 weeks. And with that, I would like to thank you, David, for coming here to the call today. Wishing everyone a good week. May the air will bless you with infinite rewards. And have a good week, everyone.
Thanks, Tommy. Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.